Hello, I'm the Trek Lad, arbiter of good Star Trek, and this is my review of 765874 Unification. This is the latest short from the Roddenberry Archive and OTOY, now available to watch for free on YouTube. At just 11 minutes long, it's an almost entirely silent piece that uses cutting-edge visual effects technology to deliver something fans have been waiting for over 30 years, a proper farewell for Kirk and Spock. This could have gone horribly wrong, and while there's been some criticism, most fans seem to agree that it's a success, which, given how divided the fandom is these days, feels like a small miracle. But what did I think? Honestly, I went in expecting to hate it. I've been critical of modern Trek and its unoriginality and overuse of nostalgia, and I thought that this was probably going to be more of the same. To my surprise, I didn't hate it. It has its issues, and I'll go into those in a second, but for the most part, Unification is a thoughtful and fitting send-off for two of Trek's greatest icons. Now, I know I'm in the minority of fans who didn't mind Kirk's death in Generations. I thought it was a bold way to go, put the phaser down. That said, I'm more than happy to admit it wasn't the dignified farewell that Kirk deserved. Unification goes a long way in fixing that, but does so in an interesting way that's open to interpretation. Is this a literal resurrection, hinting at Picard's third season tease with Kirk's remains at Daystrom Station? Is it an alternate reality, drawing inspiration from Shatner's wild alt-universe novels? By the way, a bit of a sidebar here, I've almost finished reading the first trilogy of Shatnerverse books. I've never done this before, but if you'd like to hear my thoughts on those books, let me know in the comments below. Or, and this is my personal interpretation, is this all taking place in the afterlife, maybe even being the reason behind Kirk's famous final words from Generations? Whatever your take, I appreciate the ambiguity. It doesn't spoon-feed us answers, but instead invites us to consider what all this might mean. I loved how the short ties Kirk's post-Generations journey to Spock's final resting place in the Kelvin timeline, using Discovery's Lieutenant Commander Yor to bring the two together through time and space. It's a clever and respectful use of canon, blending timelines and universes together in a way that feels like it was crafted by loving fans. As a bit of a continuity purist, I really appreciated the effort here to bridge the divide. The inclusion of William Shatner, along with permission from Leonard Nimoy's estate, gives this whole thing some much needed legitimacy. Seeing Kirk and Spock together one last time, even with the imperfections, makes for a genuinely moving moment. Without their involvement, I doubt this would have worked anywhere near as well as it did. Also involved is Sam Witwer, doing a great job standing in as a young Kirk. We also have Gary Lockwood returning as Gary Mitchell, which is a major surprise considering, and I'm pretty embarrassed to admit this, I thought he'd passed away. His involvement is pretty limited to the point I wonder what the point actually was, but nevertheless, it was lovely to see him return to the Trek universe after all these years. I also really liked the deep cut references. The inclusion of Yeoman Colt and Gary Mitchell ties into an obscure comic book series from the 80s, which I liked, even if I still don't quite get it. The big highlight for me was Robin Curtis's surprise return as Saavik, as well as the reveal of her son. This is a fascinating touch, which seemingly resolved threads from the search for Spock and the voyage home nearly 40 years later. It's subtle but highly satisfying, and I love that the film doesn't linger on or over-explain any of these moments. Right, obviously we've got to talk about the technology. Very ambitious use of CGI and deep fake effects. I think it looks good, even if it's not entirely without flaws. The faces look a little off at times, and there's an undeniable uncanny valley effect that I'm convinced at this point we will never get around. This looks much more impressive than what we've seen on the big screen with films like Rogue One or the more recent Alien Romulus, both of which faced criticism over their resurrection of dead stars. I'm still not sure prolonged use will ever work as some want it to. Using it for the occasional wordless moment clearly works, but anything more will always fire a warning in my brain that this isn't quite right. And the less said about the moments where we see Kirk walking, the better. The short also pulls off another participation coup with Michael Giacchino returning to provide the score. I'm a fan of Giacchino's work, both in Trek and in general, but here I'm not sure if we needed such a sweeping musical sound to accompany everything going on. By the end, the music swells to the point where everything just comes across as a bit too sweet and sentimental. It's all just a bit too insistent on itself. In the end, Unification isn't perfect, but it is heartfelt. It respects its characters and their history, offering fans a moment of closure that for some may have come just a tad too late. Visually, this feels polished and cinematic, with an art house vibe that I never expected to see in Star Trek. We get some thoughtful callbacks to Trek's rich history, and the whole thing feels like a love letter to the franchise, the whole franchise. Now, I've criticised other Trek projects, Picard Season 3 for example, for relying far too heavily on nostalgia. So why does this feel different? I think this feels earned. It feels like something trying to do something different. Like Picard, legacy, closure and connection is what this is all about, but at no point during this did I feel like I was just watching a boring retread filled with fan service. I'm giving Unification a 7 out of 10. It's not without its flaws, but it's got its heart in the right place, and I couldn't help but be touched by what it was trying to do. But what did you think of Unification? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more Star Trek reviews, and until next time, live long and prosper.